everywhere you show up has to give me that feel of luxury, and actually has to showcase that you are. And that's really, really important. If you're a small brand, that's how you stand out, because you're staying up consistently everywhere you are.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. I am your host, Megan Young Gamble. Y'all know my introduction, business owner, all those things. I am an everyday consumer who loves products and packaging. And for today's episode, I am so excited to have our industry powerhouse, Nichole Sims. So Nichole is the founder of Creative Visual Solutions, a retail sales coaching company that shows independent retail business owners how to improve brand positioning, increase sales, and attract customers through proven merchandising, marketing, and sales strategies. So guys, y'all are in for a treat, especially if you've been thinking about getting placement into retail. You go to these pitch meetings, they're like, hey, you got to get your packaging together. You're in for a treat because Nichole is going to give you all the tea that you need to help you succeed with getting placement in the retail stores. Okay. And so, Nichole, thank you so much for joining us on today's show.
Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. So excited.
Yes. Well, before we get into all this tea we're about to get into, share a little bit about yourself and how you got into the space.
Sure. Well, I've been in the retail industry for about 35 years. So I actually started at Express way back in the day. I won't tell you how old I am, but way back in the day as a co-manager. And I wanted to be a DM. I wanted to be a buyer first, but the buying was not my thing, because I found out that buyers only spend 4 weeks out of a week out of a month out of the year at home, and they're always traveling, crunching numbers. I'm like, no, I don't want to be a buyer. I want to be a district manager, and I want to do ways to become a regional, things like that. So I wanted to be the operational side. So I'm working at Express. I'm loving the company. You know, Express is different than it was then than it is now, but it's still a trendsetter. And we had to do floor sets every month. I'm like, okay, floor sets. Okay, we're doing floor sets. And I loved it. And I realized I was really good at it, because they give you a plan, but you obviously have to change it to your store type. And I was really good at planning it out. I was really good at seeing how our store was different and making adjustments and really making our store pop. And my DM noticed it right away, like, you're good at this. So I actually became the visual point person for the district. And everywhere since I've gone from there, I became either the visual person, even was an unofficial title. It wasn't a real title, but they saw my talent. And I would go train other stores, train other members. So it's been something in my blood for a while. So I really ended up loving being in that space. So I became a district visual for Forever 21. I was the first one in Chicago. It kind of dates me, but it's the first one in Chicago. And then I became a regional visual for Sports Authority, where I really took off. Where really a lot of things we're going to talk about today came from working with brands like Nike, Under Armour, working with North Face, and really having to do a lot of the marketing side, the inventory side, the branding side of the business. That's what a lot of today we're talking about came from those 14 years there. So that's kind of a summation. But yes, I really love what visual merchandising can do for a brand, for the bottom line. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but really what it can do for your business.
I love that. And honey, Express was the truth. And I think probably during the time you were there, they were part of the Limited brand that had like Victoria's Secret, the Limited store. Some of these kids don't even know what Limited is, the store. That's before y'all time. So we're dating ourselves. It's wisdom on this side. But it's amazing how you started off just as a store manager and was like, I did really good with doing the different floor sets that were changing out every single month with the different promotions, to then going to Sports Authority, Forever 21, then Sports Authority. So the fact that you have a very diverse experience with just visual merchandising, from apparel for different types of audiences to tennis shoes, and different tennis shoes and apparel for different audiences too. And so considering like your experience, and you've been in this industry for 35 years, like Y'all, did y'all hear that? She is seasoned, so she know what she's talking about. Okay. But considering your 35 years of experience work starting in retail to now, what are things that you have seen, since you've transitioned working with independent brands that they're not doing?
That's a very good question. And that's one reason why I started my business in the first place, because I was on a Facebook chat for boutique owners, and I saw them asking the same questions about visual merchandising and about marketing, and they're answering each other, but they're answering it incorrectly. And I'm like, you guys, this is not what this is. Understanding that a lot of people that you work with, that I work with, have a passion for the product they're creating, a passion for what they're designing, but they don't know the retail industry, and they don't know what it takes to actually run a retail business. So what I've noticed is a lot of them are just basically going with the herd, going with the flow, and I understand or step back and go, okay, there's actually methods and strategies to visual merchandising and for marketing and for branding that you have to make sure that you're telling your right story. We're gonna talk about storytelling a lot. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. Telling your story, telling your brand story, and knowing who you're talking to. And that's the one thing too, that people don't think, that visual merchandising comes with who's the end market, who's the end person I'm talking to. That dictates how I show up visually, because I want to tell the right brand story to that person so they get it. Not everybody else I'm not talking to, they don't get it, that's fine. But my visual merchandising, my marketing and branding is for that one person. That's what I see a lot of mistakes are made, because they're trying to talk to everybody and anybody and not really narrowing it down to, now I want to talk to this person. She's 35 years old. She makes $150,000. She loves to travel, and she loves luxury handbags, or she loves luxury perfume, and she loves luxury candles, whatever you're selling. And that's what she wants. And when you speak to her, everything shows up that way. You're going to make more sense.
So impactful. And I'm glad you spoke on that, because even when I work alongside of my students and clients, I ask them, who is their avatar? And they're like, all these people. How do I know that this product is talking to me, Megan, the consumer who loves a lip gloss, who likes something that's very minimalistic makeup, who makes X amount of income, who likes to travel, likes to be portable? How are you talking directly to me instead of everybody that you out here talking to? Because if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to no one, really. It's really impactful that you all have your proper client avatars and the art of storytelling. And I want to talk about the art of storytelling, because from a visual standpoint in merchandising and having your different floor sets, we know how it's going to look and it's beautiful. And especially when you're starting to work with retailers, they already know what those floor sets are going to be, and they're already pre-planning in advance. But what are things that brand owners can be doing as part of telling their brand story, and how they communicate that on the packaging to then make sure that they're showing up through the visual merchandising?
That's a great question. So that's where understanding who you are as a brand comes in. So your packaging is a reflection of you, a reflection of what your product stands for. And that's actually the first impression someone's going to get is your packaging. So if your packaging, I can go with the Luxe model. If you're a Luxe candle, you have to have a certain kind of look to you, a certain kind of color tone, a certain kind of font you have around you. You have to have a certain type of, even the fragrances that you choose have to have a Luxe feel about them. So everything about you has to show up. Luxe has to show up high end. And so when you're doing your visual merchandising, you want to make sure, especially let's say you're online, your page has to look Luxe. Your coloring has to look Luxe. The fact that you're balancing where you're showing enough pictures, but enough information, but the way information is says is not just all like word, it's actually positioned strategically. So it actually involves me and includes me. I feel heightened. Like when I get to your page, I feel, whoa, I feel kind of like I stand up a little taller. I feel a little bit better about myself because I'm acting with your brain. Same thing in the store. If you're in a store, now this depends on if you're going into a smaller retailer or a big box retailer like Target. It does depend, because Target, like you said, they have their own standards already, but you get to dictate, or you get to talk to them about, okay, well, if I want an end cap. And on my end cap, I want certain kind of fonts. I want certain type of signage. I want my signage to be this coloring. I want to have maybe 50 items, but I want to arrange it in a sort of way that it seems expensive and it seems kind of exclusive. All right. You want that on your pad. But if you're in a smaller retailer, you can have more to say, like, hey, I want this whole section over here, this whole wall, or this whole shelving section. And the way we merchandise is going to make it feel more elusive. So all of that comes into play with how I feel, because you're telling me you're Luxe. Everywhere you show up has to give me that feel of luxury, and actually has to showcase that you are. And that's really, really important if you're a small brand. That's how you stand out, because you're staying up consistently everywhere you are.
I love that. And just to reiterate some of the key points that you mentioned, guys, did you hear that Nichole said packaging is the first impression? I say this all the time. It is the first impression. You are dating me in that first impression. If I like you, then I'm going to continue to date you. And then the product is what's going to keep me invested, keep me interested in it, to keep me in their pipeline, to then want to go back and get some more. So guys, packaging is the first impression. The product is what keeps your clients in your pipeline, and the experience is how you retain them. So when Nichole is saying the same thing, I encourage you all to think about. So y'all hearing it from this retail specialist in this powerhouse right here on the show. So I want to talk about something you just mentioned, which is depending upon which retailers you're working with, whether it's independent or smaller retailers versus big box retailers, and the different inputs that you may or may not have. From your experience, what does that look like? And what can brands really start thinking about based upon the retailers they're starting to pitch and go after?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I know a lot of people, but my dream is to get into Target, or my dream is to get into, Macy's. And that's a great dream to have. But you have to understand, by going to those big box retailers, you're one of many cogs. Okay. You're one of the many different brands that they sell. So they want to sell you because, okay, you could add to their bottom line. But again, you're adding to maybe a portfolio of 50 other brands. So you want to make sure that when you're pitching to them, that you fit into the aesthetic of them, you fit into them. Okay, we have a luxury bath line. How do you fit into a luxury bath line? We already have 30 brands. Why do we need you? Okay, so make sure you're talking about that. But once you get that deal made, understanding that you won't have as much wiggle room on how you're presented. You want to have some kind of thing. You want to, take what you can, negotiate as much as you can to get a nice space on the rest of the shelving with everything else. And once you start making more money, then you have more negotiating power. When you start getting that profit margin up with them, oh, okay, they're one of our top, 15 lines. Okay, now you can talk some more. But understanding the waiting period for that. So be mindful of that, be aware, and just be patient. If you have a good product and you're doing what we're talking about, you will get that. But again, you will be one of the many brands that they offer. For a smaller one, that's where I think a lot of you guys should be going for. The mid-size or smaller, because you have more negotiation room. You have more, because they need more brands. The smaller brands, they need more brands, they need more things, because they need to compete with the larger big boxes. So they need you, but as you need them, right? So you have a little more negotiating room about your presentation, about how much in cap space you have, or how much wall space you have, or if you have your own table, which I really highly recommend. If you can get a table, in cap or a table. And then maybe it costs you a little more upfront. Like, okay, we want you to pay a little bit more for that, but you're going to be one of the top brands. People are going to see you first, and you're going to have a larger profit margin. So you have a little more wiggle room with that. So both ideas are good to have. They're going to be great for your brand. Understand the negotiating power you have up front and what you can negotiate later. Important.
I love that. And I think, a lot of brands, we see the big box retailer and we see all these notorious household names getting placement in Target and Walmart and Kohl's, Sephora, Ulta. Those are great. And some of these retailers have accelerator programs to really help elevate and really cultivate indie brands, with their positioning. But to your point, there are other independent, small, mid-sized retailers that are looking for brands to be competitive with big boxes. And we're also I call it a paradigm shift, where these smaller and mid-scale retailers, they're wanting these other brands, indie brands specifically, to get placed so they can expand their outreach, their customer base, to get more people to come into their stores to try out new products and see what's out there so they can be competitive just like Target. And so with you talking about getting into retail and even like these small indie mid-sized retailers, what are some things or some successful retail campaigns where product and packaging aesthetics plays a significant role in boosting sales and the brand reputation?
I love that question. The first one that came to my mind was a beauty bakery. I don't know if you're familiar with beauty bakery.
Yes, their packaging is iconic.
Packaging is everything, right? If you guys are familiar with her whole thing is beauty bakery. It's everything like a baked good around baking. And so her packaging is so spot on, but it's also elevated in a nice little pink. So it's grounded on nice little pink tones as well. So it's elevated. You know it's a woman's brand. You know it's feminine. You know it's high end, but you also know it has fun and it's cheeky. And the thing that comes to mind with me is I just love the fact that it's highly identifiable. And then when she got into Ulta, I was so excited. I wear her stuff. It's so excited to see the Ulta, and her everything, her packaging, even her end cap, her section looks like Beauty Bakery. So that's an example of being creative, being cheeky, being, very, very different, but also being packaging and identifying yourself from everybody else. And one thing I liked about Beauty Bakery that made her stand out, that caught attention to her, was she's one of the few first brands that had the darker skin tone foundation be number one. Yep. And then going opposite. If anybody understands makeup, you know what I'm talking about. It always goes from light to dark. Hers goes dark to light. And she was one of the few that did that. So I kind of spotlighted her difference in the marketplace, as well as her aesthetic was being so different and so creative. So that's one brand that I think you just have to take a look at to understand how you can be different, how you can be on trend, but also be innovative, and also actually showcase your innovation in a way that really resonates and really elevates your niche.
I love that. And Beauty Bakery, they do a phenomenal job with like their brand positioning, the packaging, the aesthetics and design, to even like all of their visual merchandising. Like everything is cohesive. So just like what Nichole mentioned earlier, it is the art of storytelling and having everything connect as part of your brand. That is your brand positioning. So guys, y'all are hearing it right here from the guru, the powerhouse herself, Nichole. She is letting y'all know what to do. And so thinking about like just Beauty Bakery, like we've seen her evolution, getting placement, and now in Ulta. And a lot of times these brands start off and they don't have the capital to invest in a really luxe packaging. They may not have the capital for placement in these retail stores. And so from your perspective, what can brands do when they lack capital to ensure that they're still properly showing up, standing out, to make sure that their visual merchandising is on point?
That's a great question. And reminds me of one of my clients that I had who's independent hair brand. And when we started working together, her packaging was pretty simple. It was pretty basic. And just by changing, she spent, she couldn't do a lot, like you said, a lot more things, but she ended up saying, you know what, I'm going to invest in different bottles for my hair care line, just different bottles. And then I designed her logo and her label to be more of a richer purple color. That's it. We just changed the packaging from being like a more cheaper kind of plastic to a higher grade glass. And then we changed her label to be a little more richer color tone, and it blew up. It was like, it was night and day. And that's all she did. And then she did better, showing up better on her website. We changed her website look, the way it looked more luxe, and looked more, had better images of women with natural hair. So it spoke to her client, most to her target market. And then she showed up more social media. All of that was a budget. You just pick one thing you need to invest in that will make the biggest difference. Whether it's I would start with your packaging if you can. If you can't do packaging, then how you show up on the internet. Your website is your golden ticket. Your website has to be on point and showcase. You can do that yourself, or get somebody inexpensive on Fiverr and get that website correct. And then from there, you can start going for the more expensive things. But you want to make sure you're doing one other way. It's going to be your packaging, and then going into how you show up online, and also meaning how you show up in social media. You have to make more than just do posts like TikTok videos of your product. You have to actually make some kind of story and show up, making sure that your posts have the same kind of luxe feel or same kind of trendy feel, whatever feel you have, that your messaging, your packaging, your colors are all the same. That has to all transition. So you can do that right now. Go to Canva right now, update that right now, or go on your Shopify store now, update that right now, and do that move right now and make sure that's changed, and then go into the more expenses.
I love that. And really the biggest takeaway from that, just from your client and how you help elevate her packaging and her web assets, is, guys, you may go through multiple iterations of your products, of your packaging, of your site. Be okay with change. Be okay to know that you are evolving as a brand. And as you start getting more sales, you reinvest that back into the business to do next thing. So just like with Nichole's client, where she mentioned just with the packaging, having different bottles for her hair products and then changing the labels, that's something so simple, guys, and something that can be beautifully executed to still give you that elevated experience, luxe experience, etc. And then while you're working on those things, one thing I also recommend is start pricing out present day what the idea looks like for your packaging. So if you know you want hot stamp and all this embellishment or embossing, Start getting pricing now so you can start factoring that into your retail price and know what your profit margins are going to look like when you are ready, because that is a great exercise to do. Do not wait when you're ready to do it or you're out of packaging. Start doing these exercises now. So when you start working with Nichole for visual merchandising, you already know like your different evolution and the different products and the packaging and the different merchandising you'll have too in the web assets. So I love that. So thank you for sharing. So since we're still on packaging, one of the big buzzwords right now is sustainable packaging and really sustainability, because sustainability is being applied across all industries, right? And so with sustainability constantly increasing and it's really becoming important, how can retailers integrate eco-friendly packaging and aesthetics into their visual merchandising and marketing strategies?
That is a great question and very multifaceted, but I'll try to get a little bit to. So the first part of the packaging. So I think the packaging to me is actually going to be one of the most simpler ways to do, because now so many of the packaging suppliers are focused on that. I just came from Magic in Las Vegas, and a lot of the suppliers who had packaging, who had your bags and had your boxes, they all had a whole eco-friendly section. They all talked about sustainability, so they're already on it. So I think you can find that a little easier with the recycled materials, because the industry is kind of going in that direction and kind of like regulating it. So those manufacturers are already on it. So that won't be as hard as you think it will be, because if you say, hey, I want eco-friendly packaging, they already have it for you. I want eco-friendly bottling, recycled material, I already have that for you, because they have to, right? To stay competitive and stay with. So that won't be as hard. So you can get that. When it comes to the visual merchandising, that's when you have to get a little more creative and still out there. But you want to look for natural materials. You want to look for things that are recyclable papers or recyclable materials for your displays. That might be a little more challenging, but again, it's still out there because the industry is already shifted that way. So as long as you do a little research, you can find it. That's what you want. You want to make sure that how you show up in the stores, you're using materials, using things that are recyclable, that are biodegradable, that have natural dye and things like that. So that people are already talking about that. Another way you can do this is through digital signage. Because if anybody's been worked in retail, we throw away signs like crazy. It's like every season you have your big sign package and then you dump it out. I always still be crazy working in the big companies that I work for. We would have literally sign dumps of like garbage full of signs every single season. But you know, it's not sustainable. You shouldn't be doing that anymore. So to start to change that, there's a digital sign that's a little expensive, but if you can invest in it, I think it's worth it. And if you go to the big box, some of them are already doing it already. Or they're doing digital signing where your messages can change weekly, monthly, quarterly, or whatever you need to. But all you do is put in a computer system and it changes for you. That saves a ton of waste, a ton of paper, and it's actually visually appealing, and it attracts a lot more millennials, a lot more people like who are digitally focused, like, oh my God, that's so cool. And they want to interact with it. It allows you to have more interaction with your product as well. So actually boost customer engagement as well. So that's like 2-4-1. But there's ways you can do it, but you do your research. But I think as long as you do your research, it's already on top of mind. All the suppliers are ready, so it won't be as much of a hard time as it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, you probably have more of a challenge, but now it won't be as difficult. Do your research, know what you want, what you can afford, and what's more important.
I love that. And you just talked about like where we were 5 years ago to now. The ways of working is totally different. And we've seen a lot of retails close down to transition to e-commerce because of this. We're in a digital age now, unfortunately, thanks to COVID. And so thinking about like this transition where we still have retailers transition to more of a digital space, what can brands do to ensure that they are properly positioning themselves from a digital visual merchandising standpoint to make sure that their brands show up and stand out? What do you recommend?
This is a great question. This is what I do a lot of my clients is that website. That's such an essential part of your business. And it's that homepage, and that first homepage, you put so much effort into it. So you want to make sure that homepage is visually appealing, meaning that it catches the eye, it engages me, it has a nice mixture of product as well as information. You have wonderful photos. Your photos have to be on point. You have to have on point photos that are clear, that are crisp, that are telling the story, and then using video. So those are the simple, easy right now ways. You want to get a little more advanced. You can start doing 3D renderings. You can start doing virtual reality. You can start AR, which is augmented reality. And so you can create more experiences around your product. So what you can do is if you have the AI technology, if you want to invest in it, and there's a lot of programs out there you can do that are now waiting for that. And Shopify is getting closer to that, as well as other apps you can add to your stores. But let's say you're a candle brand, and you want to show how some candle works in someone's house, but they can download a picture of their home and then 3D render it into their home so they can see how it look. Or same thing, you see the technology with trying on your face with lipstick. It's the same technology. You can put it on and say, hey, I want to see myself. You download a picture of yourself and you put it on there. So you want to start implementing, and they're more inexpensive as the years go on because more and more people are doing it and more companies are making better apps. So that's how you get visually, because the big brands are doing it, but the software is not just for them. The software is out there. So now before software was just for them, now the software is trickled down. So you can have access to the software, to this AI, and get little pieces of it there. But again, if you can't get on the AI yet, your biggest thing is putting an effort into making sure that your visuals are on point on your homepage, that is set up correctly, that I can read it, that I can go through it really clean and easily, that it's balanced, and that when I come on there, I feel something with you. I want to engage with you in that homepage. And you can do that now and then get into the other stuff later. But you have to make sure that when people find you on social media, or they find you from a Google ad or Facebook ad, and they hit that site, they want to stay there. You are capturing them. That's going to be the key.
Oh, girl, you just talked about all the technology advancements that we have seen really just within the past 3 years that has really taken off, because now we're seeing household names doing CGI through their billboards for that 3D impact. You see a lot of companies starting to incorporate AR. I think Sephora, JCPenney's, they were like the top leaders to have AR for trying on makeup, and MAC too. And now seeing that indie brands can start utilizing the same technology to help with their digital space is fascinating. And I have to ask you this, because since we're in this technology age and you're talking about it, what's your experience or thoughts about like the metaverse, Roblox, all of those things?
I actually think the metaverse is pretty cool. I think that before, because it came out a year ago, and I remember looking at it on a group call that I was on, and just kind of saying, this is kind of interesting. And then now all the applications of it and how you can go into the metaverse and actually look into things and actually try on things, or actually be immersed in something before you try it out and be part of the community. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's different. You have to get yourself around it. I think it's a way to actually create different communities, create more communities, to create more buzz around your brand, to actually showcase more what you could do on 2D. It actually allows that 3D experience, allows people to really get engagement with your brand. So I think it's a really great option, a really great thing if you can get into it. And just try to use it some way so people differentiate you from your competitors. But also, again, it allows you to tell a more deep and rich brand storytelling. Allows you to do a lot that you can do on a two-way or even in stores, because you can do it so much in the store, right? But in metaverse, you can actually do a lot of things that encompass a person around them and really have them really be engulfed in your brand. So I think it's fantastic.
I do too. And let me tell you, I went to LuxPack and they talked about beauty in the metaverse. And guys, I was floored, because I tell y'all, I stay a student because there's so much in this industry, in the different sectors of the industry. You don't know everything. So you have to stay a student. And I'm even learning from Nichole on this episode too, just a reference of like the importance of visual merchandising, how to show up, stand out in this transition we're in from physical stores, which are still present. And that's where a lot of brands rely on positioning their brands and getting new target audience, attracting new audiences. But now we have this new digital space where you have Roblox. Beauty just did a partnership with Roblox. You have more people going to metaverse like Lacombe, Estee Lauder, etc. And now y'all are having to think about the same thing and compete. So we're in this paradigm shift, guys, where we still miss going to retail because you can touch it, you can feel it, you can see it. But on a digital space, you can just see it. But how do you get in that immersive environment and still show up and be really cognizant about your own merchandising and making sure all your web assets align with the brand and that storytelling of your brand? So I think it's just fascinating. And I have to set up a Google Trend alert every week to get a notification about beauty in the metaverse, because it's so much. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm in the Sims game. Actually, like your name. Remember the game, Sims, from back in the day? Some kids may be too young to even know that, but that was a whole game. They were forward thinking at that time, but we are in that age now. And so thinking about how like brands are transitioning into more digital space, how you can start incorporating more digital signage and 3D renderings, AI, AR, etc. We are seeing the rise in e-commerce significantly. And with that, how can retailers create a seamless omni-channel experience that maintains consistent product and packaging aesthetics?
That's a very good question. And I also want to say we are going to digital space and we are going to e-commerce, and that's really big. But I have a wonderful stat that I love to put on my Instagram, I love to put out there, that still 85% of all sales are done in store.
Mm-hmm.
So don't get that twisted. You still want to be in a physical store. So you're still trying to get in the store, you want that. But the e-commerce is growing because the reason why they're doing so many of these things is because they're competing with the physical store. That's what they're doing, because physically, like you said, I can touch and feel it. But how can a brand only wants to be online? How can they compete? And that's where all the technology comes from. So to answer your question, omni-channel is a huge deal right now. You have to be omni-channel. You have to make sure that there's a seamless flow from online and brick and mortar and vice versa. Because again, customers like to do both. Especially if you offer both, actually it's better for your brand. So I would say if you are only online, you have to get physical some kind of way, whether it's going to be through a series of pop-up shops or getting into brick and mortar, you need to be physical. So that's something you want to make sure you're doing. But how you become omni-channel is basically more, we just said, seamless. I should have the same experience online that I have in the store. And my example for that is I find you on social media, right? I see an ad of yours or something, and I go to your website, and it is beautiful. It is luxe. It is gorgeous. It's well put together. You have great videos. You have all this wonderful engagement. You have great photos. You're really getting my storytelling. I love your product story. You have a nice balance. I'm just loving shopping. Oh, you have a store in my area? Fantastic. So I'm gonna go to your store and it's dirty, it's cluttered, it has poor lighting, it's not virgin merchandising, the windows are not telling me any story, everything's pulled together, there's no signage, it's a ton of thing. It's a totally different experience. And I like, this is not the store I just shopped online. Like I bought something online, but now I actually want to meet you, or I want to go there. And now I'm all like, this is not the same brand. Something must be right. That'd be right. Okay. Or vice versa. I go to your store, I find you in the mall. I say, oh my God, this is a beautiful store. You have wonderful windows, you have wonderful spacing, wonderful lighting, your presentation is flawless. You have all this wonderful storytelling. I can walk through. I shop your store for 2 hours because I love being in here, engaging with the merchandising, engaging with the storytelling you're telling me, engaging with your product. And then I go on your website because you know, oh, maybe I'm out of town. I live in Texas and now I go back home to Florida. And I go to your website, it's conjumbled, it's visually unappealing, it's hard to read, I can't go through it really easily, the colors don't match, but your colors were pink, now they're purple on here, what's going on? So that's how you omni-channel. And then also making sure that I can buy online, I can pick up in store. That's how you making sure it's an omni-channel, it's seamless. I don't see one deviation from wherever you show up. And that's what a lot of brands need to really focus on. Is like they're putting so much time being online perfect, and then their store is okay. You can't do that. You have to make sure that your show up brand wise, completely seamless every single way you show up.
I love that. And just to hit on one point where you're talking about like the color deviations, you know, from your website to then coming in store and seeing like your planograms, marketing strips or whatever, and it's not purple, it's pink. And you're like, well, I thought it was purple, you know, and purple is representative of loyalty, you know, royalty. Sometimes like the lavender, you know, going to lighter shades is like representative of calm, cooling and stuff like that. So just that deviation from purple to pink is big. And that's one thing I even recommend to people I work with. Like your packaging, first impression, right? But everything that you are printing out, it needs to all be cohesive, and it's all different materials. So you really need to go through the proper exercises to ensure that what you're printing on SBS board, which would be your standard product boxes, is matching the bottles and the labels to your planograms, which may be 20-point cardstock font or whatever the different type of paper substrate is. All of those things need to connect, because to your point, if they're deviating, you're like, this is not what I saw online, and I thought this was luxe, and I'm seeing that. But then the point that you made too, like with some of these retailers, poor lighting, the colors are not popping, even the windows being dirty, you're like, you know what? I'm good. And now the image of the brand is tainted because those things aren't in place, and the store is not really that upscale experience that you were really hoping and desiring to see. So I think that's really big. And so from your perspective, like what are things that brands could do to ensure that everything is cohesive, how the lighting impacts the color, to the color psychology with brands and consumers coming there to purchase the products? What can brands do to make sure that they're effectively implementing proper visuals with their merchandising?
Good question. Again, that goes to where you're going to be. Are you going to be in a big box retailer, or are you going to be in a mid-size or smaller? Because again, you have more leeway, more say. So if you're a big box retailer, like you go, I know there's been a push with Walmart and with Target to have more elevated beauty supplies and more elevated areas over there. They've done some really great things over there because of that fact that people, when they think of Walmart, they weren't thinking elevated beauty, but now like, oh, wait a minute, this department is gorgeous, because now they're having different brands. And so they're changing the way they come across with the lighting, the fixturing, their sign package. So you just want to have a sit down talk, or they agree to have you in their store. Okay, where's our product going to be? How does it look? Visit the store where it's going to go. Okay, well, the lighting's kind of dark over here. You guys going to fix that? Like, talk to them about that. Like, hey, I really want, because it helps them as well. Because if you have to take a stand for your brand, much as you can, say, hey, I really want to make sure this is a well-lit area. I really want to make sure this, I'm sticking to some great brands, that I'm next to a brand that compliments me for 1, 2, and you want to make sure they all come cohesive. And then you have a discussion, because that helps them as well. Because if your brand sells well, the other brands around them, they make money. All right, so put it in that way. But then when you go into a smaller brand or smaller independent retailer, you have a little more leeway, a little more say. Like, okay, I want to make sure, okay, you're going to have better lighting when you carry my product. In this section, I'll actually, well, this is where your best lighting is in the store. Can I have this lighting? Okay, I'll pay $50 extra for that. Okay, great. I want to be over here where your best lighting is in the store, or right next to the window or whatever, or right next to the front entrance. I like this area here. Can we talk about that? So you can have a little bit more negotiation power with the smaller brand, because they can be more nimble. They're not going to a corporate, board of directors or vice president. It's them usually, or their partner, so they can do a bit more. But you do want to have those conversations regardless, and and that actually shows that you know what you're talking about, and it shows that you care about your brand, and it shows that you're like, I'm not just some old indie brand that you don't know, but I know what sells, and I know what my product needs, and I know my customer, and I know this, and that impresses them. Like, okay, this person's for real. Okay, let me listen to them. I'm gonna do what I can. But again, be patient with the larger brands, but don't be afraid to ask for those things. And then the smaller brands will have more negotiation up front, like, hey, I'll pay extra $10 a month for this, but I really want to come over here. I really want whatever negotiation is. I really want the best lighting in your store, and I really want the best focus. And then work with that. But come knowing what you want, what you need, and don't be afraid to talk about it.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And since you mentioned that 85% of consumers still shop in store, what are some key elements brands really should consider, like going into these retailer meetings and thinking about, okay, I'm looking at the lighting, I'm looking at the placement, because a lot of brands think that they're all going to get top shelf placement, and that's not always the case, and that's the real deal. You don't always get top shelf. You don't always get top shelf. So what are things that brand owners really need to be intentional about with placement in these retail stores when they're having the conversation with them?
Yeah, good question. One thing I mentioned about making sure that your adjacent brands match your brand. If you are, I can go to the Lux face creams for that. If you're a Lux face cream, you don't want to be next to a $2, $10 face cream, because that's where they have space, right? You want to negotiate, hey, I want to be next to the other brand, maybe on the second shelf or the third shelf, but everything around me costs $50 or more. I'm fine with that, because that customer is coming to look at that section, will see me part of that. Instead of me being over here with the $15 brands, where my customer will be going to, I'm going to miss out on who I'm talking to. So talk about, okay, can I at least, if I'm going to be in a third shelf, can I at least make sure who the brands around me are my target market? Because I'm on third shelf, fine. I'm new to you, that's fine. But you want to make sure adjacencies. And then you want to see, again, when you get more comfortable and you have more say, can I get an end cap? Or can I be about an end cap? Can I get into one of your when you're doing a feature end cap or a feature table, or when you're doing one of your back to school brands, or whatever the brand is, that fits your branding, when you're doing one of those special, like, Target and Walmart and all these Macy's, they all have like, okay, this is our back to school brand. This is our, Black History brand, whatever they're trying to showcase for that particular month. Can I be part of that? Okay, maybe 9 times out of 10 of the year, I'm going to be in this shelf. When you have your color brands, can I be part of that color brand? Like, figure out ways that you can get, light spot on you as much as possible. And if you can't, like I said, can't be in the top tier, make sure your adjacencies are secure, and then you can be called out. And again, the smaller brands, okay, can I have my own end cap? Can I have my own table? What would it take for me to be in your aisle? Okay, well, how can I be in your aisle for at least Christmas? Maybe I can't be now in the spring because you have another line, but can I be your Christmas brand? Or can I be your Easter brand? Whatever that is, negotiate those times when you can get that spotlight on you. So customers come in, oh, I saw it over there last week, but okay, now I see a table of it. This is great stuff. So you have that more visibility. So it's negotiable depending on where you are, but you want to make sure that everything lines up to make your brand stand out and actually build your story. That takes away.
For the power round, I'm going to put the time on, I'm gonna give you 60 seconds, and we're going to go ahead and start now. So as a choreographer, you're like the captain of a dance adventure. If you could choreograph a routine for any famous person, who would it be and what style of dance would you choose?
It would be Debbie Allen, and I would do jazz. I would do African jazz.
Oh, I love me some Debbie Allen, baby. Wow. Yes. As a choreographer, what transferable skills did you gain from dancing that is applicable in retail visual merchandising?
Storytelling.
That's a good one. And then say that one more time.
Tell your story creatively.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. And then packaging is important because fill in the blank.
It tells you who you are as a brand in seconds.
Boom! Girl, you did good. Still with 12 seconds on the clock. I love it. So really good. And you was quick on your toes, girl. I like it. I like it. And so as we wrap up for today's episode, Nichole, let everybody know how they can get in contact with you to help ensure that they are working with you to make sure that their brand shows up, stands out through the use of storytelling and visual merchandising.
Love to. So you can reach me, my IG. You can DM me anytime. It's Creatives with an S Solutions, the Creative Solutions. Also, my website is Nichole Sims, NiCholeSimms, theboutiqueexpert.com. And all my services are on there, and tons of free stuff on there as well. So definitely check me out there. And then I'm also on LinkedIn under Nichole Sims. So if you want to connect with me there, but I'm always open for DMs, always open for emails and contacts. So yeah, I'd love to connect with anyone, talk about visual merchandising, which is I love, as you can tell, and help you out.
Awesome. Well, Nichole, thank you so much for being our powerhouse guest here on today's show. And all of her information and respective links will be down in the show notes for you all to ensure that you do connect with Nichole after today's show. So with that being shared, make sure that you as a brand owner is making sure that you're properly standing out in the retail stores, because 85% of consumers still shop in store. And so don't let that slip by the wayside because you're only focusing on just the digital strategy. Make sure your retail physical strategy is in place as well. And so for today, thank you all so much for tuning in to the Product and Packaging Powerhouse Show. I am your host, Megan Young Gamble, and make sure you go ahead, follow, like, and subscribe to all of our platforms to tune into the next episode. So I'll see y'all on the next one.